And we're live. Right on. Welcome. Live reaction from Conference USA and the Pac-12 title games tonight. Absolute crazy Friday night. Both games very entertaining to watch, and results were pretty interesting. We're going to dive right in here. We're on the heels of the Pac-12 game, Utah USC finishing. But first on tonight was University of North Texas, UTSA. That goes final 48-27, UTSA winning back-to-back Conference USA championships for the first time in school history. Hasn't been done in Conference USA since ECU back in the 90s. Frank Harris, the quarterback, only 5 incompletions on the night, 32 of 37, 341, 5 touchdowns, 49 rush yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. UTSA has those dudes on offense like we talked about. Cephas, Jakari Franklin, even their tight end was getting in there. They just have a lot of different guys they can throw to. They had a ton of guys out in this game across the trenches, defensive line, offensive line. I think they were down both starting tackles. So they were getting the ball out quick. They run a really interesting, a lot of motion, a lot of wide receiver motion, and a screen game. They would basically bring the wide receiver, whoever it was, Cephas or Franklin, across the formation into the other side, snap the ball, check the screen there, and then either the screen would be hit or they would fake a screen and have someone going deep. And that pretty much took the top off of the North Texas defense 9 times out of 10. They did a lot of good job. If they weren't going for a big chunk play like that, they would do a good job of rolling the pocket around, doing a lot of play action, or just running the ball. They were pretty decent moving the football on the ground, as their running back had, or they had like 200 and some yards of rushing offense. I expected North Texas to show up a little better, and I was really disappointed with Austin On, their 29-year-old quarterback. North Texas did a really good job of moving the ball on the ground like I thought they would. Really just couldn't get any stops on defense. And then when they did pass the ball, I mean, in the first half, their quarterback, Ani, was not great. Was a little more efficient in the second half, really helped by a two deep bombs that he hit in the second half to put them in scoring positions, one for a touchdown. Outside of that, nothing in the short to intermediate areas that you could consistently hang your hat on if you're North Texas. And he ends up throwing 2 picks on 50-50 balls, or at least one, and the other one was tipped during one of the final possessions. North Texas just didn't have the guys in the secondary to handle UTSA, who ends up 11-2. We'll see what bowl game they go to. Their quarterback, Frank Harris, does have another year of eligibility, which is quite interesting. So we'll see where that ends up. He did make a decision right then and there, but could be something else moving on. So both these teams now move on to the American. I guess I'll use this opportunity to talk about that. UTSA, North Texas, Rice, Florida Atlantic, and Charlotte all move on to the American. Conference USA is now a much denigrated conference consisting of Florida Atlantic, Louisiana Tech, UTEP, and Middle Tennessee State and Western Kentucky. Those are the 5 holdovers from this current edition of Conference USA. They will be adding New Mexico State, who is going bowling this year. And New Mexico State has a natural rivalry with UTEP. So it does make sense to add New Mexico State, who is not a great program by any means, but fits your geographic profile and has a natural rival within. It makes sense, and they're moving up a little bit, as it were. So makes some sense there. Liberty, who is obviously Hugh Freeze, if you know Hugh Freeze, now coach at Auburn, coached Liberty this season. They had a pretty good year. They went 8-4. They beat Arkansas, almost beat Wake Forest. And they're also adding 2 FCS programs who will be transitioning up next year. Jacksonville State in Alabama, coached by Rich Rodriguez, and Sam Houston State in Eastern Texas, who won the 2020 spring FCS national championship. So Conference USA is going to is getting smaller. It's going to be an 8-team conference next season. It will grow to 9 in 2024 with the addition of Kennesaw State, and get significantly worse in terms of the talent that's going to be there. Western Kentucky is probably the best team in the conference at this point. They're currently 8-5 and awaiting a bowl game. And Middle Tennessee State, who will perpetually have their head coach, Rick Stockstill, who triggered another contract extension. He's now under contract through 2029. They seem to not really want to move from him, despite having, Middle Tennessee State has been a 5-7, 6-6 team. Maybe some years they push up to 8 wins under Rick Stockstill. So, if you like living in the middle ground, then you like it, which is obviously what MTSU likes. Anyway, so that's the new Conference USA. The new American is basically the American we have now without Cincinnati, Houston, and Central Florida. They move on to the Big 12. So this new American UTSA comes into is kind of wide open, sans like Tulane and SMU. Those are kind of the 2 top dogs in the American next season. Depending on what UTSA can do with retaining players, it was a huge crowd there tonight in the Alamo Dome. 46,000 people. It's crazy how they're in a really unique situation at UTSA where San Antonio is the 7th largest city in the United States, and they're the only they're the only major football program in the city. They don't have a pro football team. They don't even have I think they might have had a semi-pro team in the NFL, but or the XFL. And I don't know if they have one reoccurring in the rendition of the XFL coming forward in the spring. So they're kind of the only show in town, and they have a really nice indoor stadium. The Alamo Dome is nice. I got to visit it when I was in San Antonio, and it is gorgeous. I mean, as far as indoor football stadiums go, you can't ask for much more in terms of a college football setting. So the community turns out. They really support the program. They're also supporting it monetarily. You can really you can see that in the amount of facilities that UTSA has been able to put into their athletics and athletics and football program, as well as their ability to retain the staff that are currently on staff for Jeff Traylor, and their ability to stop other teams from hiring Jeff Traylor. Jeff Traylor would probably be a good candidate for, I don't know, you could argue the TCU job last year. They got Sonny Dykes. SMU then opened because he was at SMU. Jeff Traylor was a good option for SMU. They went Rhett Lashley. So there's clearly something going on that Jeff Traylor, it has financial backing and a strong commitment from the university to really move this program forward. Now they're coming out of Conference USA into this much more competitive American. I don't know if the American Conference kind of loses a bit of luster with its top programs leaving. There's a void there that is waiting to be filled, and I'm really interested to see how well UTSA can attack and fill that void along with the other programs coming with. Really, North Texas is kind of the only other Conference USA program that is right now going to be able to really play or really compete with the other American teams that are there. Tulane is looking very strong, and ECU finally had an uptick of a year, and SMU has looked pretty good down the stretch. So great win for UTSA. They have 11 wins on the season. I hope they're ranked on Tuesday or on Sunday for the college football playoff rankings. That would just be nice to see. I doubt they'll get the New Year's Six bid. Their two losses on the season: overtime to Houston at home, tough one, and then they went to Texas earlier in the season and lost. They got just out athleted by Texas, which is what you would expect. Um, so great win for UTSA, and North Texas is, North Texas battled pretty hard down the stretch of the season to make the conference championship game. Needed to win against Rice to get in. So, and there was talk of Seth Luttrell maybe getting the axe this season. So nice to see them kind of rally and fight for their coach. I don't know. I would be shocked if they made a move off of Seth Luttrell. He definitely has something good going. They got to get better quarterback play. I mean, cool that they have this 30-year-old ex-baseball player, Austin Aune, but man, it was pretty pretty disgusting what he clearly couldn't do in a traditional like drop back offense at a shotgun. It was pretty much deep balls and like zingers over, like just straight line balls over the middle. No touch. He had he had instances where people were open in the end zone, and if he kind of floats it over somebody, it's there. Um, nice sidearm throws from time to time, but doesn't seem to like getting hit too. A lot of times, if he steps up in the pocket, makes a throw, but takes some contact, it's there. And saw him kind of fall back on some throws, so didn't like that. He's apparently not returning, so that's not a problem. Maybe they go portal to try to find a quarterback because definitely need it. Anyway, the piece de resistance of the evening, the entree, the main course, Utah, USC. USC comes out firing. They get 14-3 on Utah. Utah looks sluggish on offense, on their heels on defense. Caleb Williams pops a big run in the second quarter. Or maybe that was second quarter. Yeah, no, it was no, I think it was in the second quarter. Coming into the half, he pops a big run and goes down a bit gimpy and is a bit immobile for the rest of the quarter. You kind of notice he's not as bouncy in the pocket and doesn't, get out of there when he needs to. So that was a clue at the end of the first half that things might not be as they seem. With Caleb Williams specifically. And USC was a team that very much relied on Caleb Williams to be healthy and productive consistently because he was their offense. He made the passing game go, obviously, and he was like this team's second leading rusher. Like his ability to scramble out of bad situations, keep plays alive with his legs just on plays that just broke down, especially with the pocket, and keep things alive for his receivers downfield was key to how that offense operated. And as soon as that evaporated, especially in the second half, as Utah said, ooh, he's injured, bring everybody. They brought 4 or 5 consistently and just started getting more and more pressure. I think they did a really good job of squeezing the pocket, realizing that Caleb really couldn't move, and if he did escape the pocket, it wasn't that bad. So they just tried to really compress it as much as they could and started getting home more and more as USC started getting some linemen that were dinged up. And offensively, Utah just kind of went to work pounding the rock on offense, just just run the ball, hitting their tight ends over the middle on play action. And USC over 20 missed tackles on the night. They averaged 10 missed tackles a game on the season, which I'm not sure how high that is. Seems awful as a stat, but over 20 missed tackles. They had 22 closing in the fourth quarter, and then they gave up 2 late scoring drives by Utah as they were just kind of physically out of it. Utah imposes their will down the stretch as Caleb Williams is significantly immobilized with his injury. Does a pretty good job. Led one touchdown drive that was really impressive. Scrambled a little bit, ran out of the pocket, made a nice downfield throw. Looked like USC might be able to come back if they could just get a stop on defense, and Utah just explodes for a long run that consistently USC was not able to stop. They were not ready or willing to be that physical with this Utah team. Funny guy I follow on Twitter, Spencer Hall, tweeted, "This is what happens when someone gets dragged into the bear pit at the zoo," which I very, very apt description of what happened with the physicality that Utah brought to this game. So, classic Pac-12 fashion. You've got a playoff contending team in USC, and you've got Utah, who is a good team, not a great team, that could spoil that Pac-12's team's opportunity to get into the playoff. And of course, they do. So the conundrum now that a lot of people are arguing about is, should USC be able to make the playoff even though they lost their conference championship game? However, they would have been in the playoff because they are currently number 4 had they not even played this game because they were ranked over Ohio State at 5. Why should USC be punished for playing an extra game yet losing it? And that's a really good point. Now, the college football playoff is going to expand in 2 years so that in 2024, if this result had happened, then Utah would make the playoff and USC would have lost the ability to have a bye in the playoff. And they probably would lose home field advantage in the first round. I think they'd probably get knocked to about the 9 or 10 spot. And really it comes down to, and a bigger point I'm seeing more on Twitter as the kind of falling action from this game continues, is that it almost is the way that Utah lost. They end up losing. Final score was 47-24. So they get almost doubled up. Utah misses an extra point in the fury of touchdowns that they score late. Yeah, pretty much after the touchdown that puts USC down 3, Utah goes 75 yards in 2 plays. Then Caleb throws an interception trying to press the ball downfield on a wheel route again with the tight end, and Utah goes 3 plays, 61 yards, touchdown. USC fumbles as Caleb gets swarmed in the backfield, and Utah goes 3 plays, 38 yards, touchdown. So the last 3 possessions Utah had, they only had 8 plays and scored 3 touchdowns. USC definitely gave up on defense and got very frustrated. And I think that right there, their ability, their USC's inability to stay in the game late physically is what I think deserves to have them drop out of the college football playoff conversation. They're down 3. And your defense lets Utah go 75 yards in 2 plays. That just can't. I know their defense has been bad all year, and their defense was pretty soft. I saw Arizona State, a pretty bad Pac-12 team, run outside zone on them for a whole half and keep it very competitive. So I'm very well aware how unphysical their defense can be. But in a high-stakes game against a quality opponent, with your team back against the wall, you need your defense to do more to be able to hold any weight in the national conversation of should your team still be allowed to compete in the national playoff. You can't have one side of the ball completely wither away. Now the offense does as well. They end up throwing an interception and having 2 turnovers, but that's more because they understand that the defense isn't getting any stops, so they literally have to score on every single possession, and the running game goes completely to hell because one, time, but two, the running game, and especially the counter run game that USC predicates their offense on, relies heavily on Caleb Williams being able to be mobile and defenses not being able to key so much on the running back in the zone read concept that they run on their counter. When Caleb puts the ball in the belly of the back and he comes across Caleb's face, he reads the defensive end. If the defensive end crashes, Caleb's going to roll. He's going to run to the right and maybe pick up yards or have someone downfield to throw to, kind of that RPO action. But if they know Caleb can't move, then they just key on the running back. And that's exactly what Utah did every time USC ran the ball later in the game. So the entire offense was predicated around Caleb's ability to be a mobile quarterback. And when that was gone, the offense became a shell of itself. And Caleb did a pretty damn good job just being a pocket passer, with a pocket that was bit under siege for most of the second half, and also a lot of just arm throws. He wasn't able to put a lot of his own, a lot of legs into his throws because it was his. I don't think it was a knee or a thigh. Like we never in the broadcast, we never got a clear idea of what the injury was. It was just clearly a lower body leg injury, and it caused him to not be able to put a lot into throws. But he's got so much arm talent that he was able to do enough, which was really impressive. But yeah, USC essentially collapsing down the stretch is my reasoning for why they would drop out, and you would put Ohio State in. Now, you could also argue Ohio State completely collapsed defensively, but in a different way. It wasn't like Ohio State couldn't tackle Michigan. It was Ohio State could not fit the run against Michigan. Um, they tried to overplay the run against Michigan later in the game and looked essentially like bad coaching. Like they just missed gaps, overplayed a gap, just played themselves out of the ability to stop the run. Got overzealous, I guess you could say, in stopping the run game that led to just a couple wide open runs for Michigan that put Ohio State away. So with this loss, interesting to see what happens with USC's offense. They've got a lot of pros, especially at the skill positions, that will probably go to the NFL. It's an interesting case study. Caleb Williams has to return. He's a sophomore. He'll be back. USC is obviously a school that has lots of money, that has an NAL program. I think it is fairly strong from what I gather. I don't know. There's no way that the booster organization has the money for, like, if you're a first round pick in the NFL draft, you're going to go. If you're a second round pick, I assume you go. But if you're a third round guy now, and some of these guys on USC are just for Mario Williams and Jordan Addison are both NFL players. Addison is a third year guy. I would assume he's gone. And Mario Williams I don't know what year he is. I think he's an Oklahoma transfer. I think he might be a third year guy as well. So he'll probably go. Actually, you know what? Might as well look at it, right? Mario Williams, sophomore, but how many years has he done? He's done 2 seasons. Okay, Mario Williams will return. And Jordan Addison transferred from Pitt. He did 2 seasons at Pitt, and he did 1 season at USC. So he's a third-year guy. So he's draft eligible. Does USC have the NIL collective money available to keep him? Does he want to stay? These are all interesting questions as we enter the a more built up NIL world in college football this offseason, where you have now I definitely think because the NFL produced draft grades of first round, second round, return to school. And obviously, if you get the return to school and you have the eligibility to do so, you probably should. And especially with COVID, a lot of people do. Um, but if you're a second round pick, even if you're a first round pick, like, and how much do you care about like winning a championship? Because I would assume if USC is able to do anything, getting decent line, they need to get defensive line, they need linebackers, they need everything on defense. They need better players essentially across the board defensively. Um, are they able to get it in the portal? Obviously, the recruiting class is going to be pretty good. They have Lincoln Riley, but are they able to make? Are they able to keep the top? Basically, what I'm saying is, can USC? Is there a college football team out there, NIL wise, that is able to keep a first round player from going to the NFL draft like Jordan Addison? Is that possible? Really interested to see what happens in that space. Yeah, wow. What an evening for the Pac-12. Again, they shoot themselves in the foot. They actually went the Pac-12 eliminated divisions this year because it was thought statistically it would help them get a team in the playoff more often instead of having the North versus South, because more often than not they would have, like, for the past few years it has been the South was the weaker division, and that you would have Washington and Oregon both be good teams in the North, but then you would have one of them go play a team from the South, and either that win wouldn't be good enough or the South team would win, eliminating the North team from playoff contention. And whoop-de-doo, happened again. Pac-12 shoots itself in the foot. But great warm up for conference championship weekend as we see UTSA beat North Texas 48-27, and then Utah over USC 47-24. USC just getting out muscled and a hurt. It's football. Sometimes people get hurt. And when it's your best player that your whole offense is built around, yeah, the nosedive is real. And that team crashed to the ground without Caleb Williams and a defense that was not ready or willing to match the physicality of Utah. Utah wanted to bang its head against a wall for 60 minutes, and USC said, "Ooh, no, thank you. That's gross." And they paid for it. So we'll see what happens to them next year. Utah is off to the Rose Bowl. USC is off to a bowl game. We'll see what happens with the opt-outs. I'm really interested to see what happens with bowl opt-outs with these kids having NIL contracts, if those are void, if they don't play all the games or whatever. But bowl games are that's what we'll definitely be tracking with bowl season is, who's out, who's in, who's out. I mean, it's not injuries, it's opt-outs for these top level guys. And I would assume guys who, if you're going to return, you'd play. So if you have NIL money, you might return. So you're going to play the bowl game. Interesting. Anyway, thank you for joining on this live reaction of the Pac-12 championship and Conference USA championship. Mike's on with college football. We'll be seeing you tomorrow, Saturday, for another live reaction. It might be doing little ones throughout the day. There's going to be a lot of dead time as everything is, there's a couple noon games and then some 4 o'clocks and some 8. So might be able to sprinkle in here or there to just kind of touch base, catch up, and just get all our thoughts on tape. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.